And then now he sees someone walking backwards and it's just more than his heart can bear. And I guess it's because like things like that in the modern age are, I mean, not common, but we see them in horror movies so often and stuff, we don't really think anything of it. But it's weird that he describes all these bodily images and this is the one that does him in. People walking without the use of their knees. How terrible. Also, I feel like the punishment doesn't scale because the one we're about to talk about is way worse. Like you've got the popes, the like Pope tube with people on the outside having their feet burned up. And then we've got people walking backwards. And then the next one's a pit of boiling oil. Like, anyway. So they come to the next one, the fifth trench, which is like this boiling pit of tar. And at first when walking around it, they don't see anyone. But then a demon runs by carrying someone on his shoulder and then dumps them into the pit of tar, and all the other demons have these big like stirring rods and just push him under. And Dante realizes, oh, there's like millions of people under there. How quaint. Virgil explains to Dante that this part is for barrators, or in other words, people who exchange money for political office, or in other words, the way modern politics work. So Virgil, again using his wise words, negotiates for safe passage, because as one of the devils explained to him, there used to be bridges connecting all these trenches, but whenever Jesus did the whole like return thing and the whole earthquake happened, that destroyed the bridges, so now they need to kind of like climb their way across. While walking around the edge of the pit, Dante begins to notice that there's a few people who like swim to the surface and hide under the rock face, but whenever one of the demons come around, they dive back under. Which that's got to be, you know, a scary idea if it's like, well, back into the boiling tar I go. That's better than dealing with these guys. At one point while the devils are walking around, which also, mind you, this entire time they've been making fun of Dante, like, hey, what if we throw him in the pit? Wouldn't that be funny? And Dante's like crying and throwing up and everything. At one point as they're walking around, one of the demons stab a guy and hoist him up in the air, and Dante's trying to have a conversation with him, but every time he says something, one of the demons like pokes an organ out. Anyway, eventually there's like a moment of confusion with the demons, and the guy manages to hop off the hook back into the boiling tar. So the two demons get into a fight with each other and fall into the tar. And Dante never elaborates if they're just stuck down there forever or what. But there's two demons in the tar pit now, whatever that means. So the other demons get mad at Virgil and Dante because, I don't know, they're like, hey, get those guys now for some reason. So Virgil and Dante run and just jump into the sixth trench, which turns out is a relatively chill trench. However, it's really lucky that it was, because what if it was another boiling tar one? It's like, oh, and we're dead now. Great. All of God's journey ruined because we were running and jumped into a trench like an idiot. So they jump into the sixth trench, and it's a bunch of people with really heavy garments over them. And that's it. Like, it's just like these heavy, they look like robed people walking around in circles. And Dante points out that the outside of the robes look beautiful, but the inside is like brittle and covered in lead and stuff. It's not on fire. It's not anything extreme. They're just forced to walk around all the time in really heavy garments, but like, can they sit down? Can they like take a nap? Is this just like a bunch of weighted blankets everywhere? Dante eventually talks to two men who explain that they are friars and that this pit is for hypocrites. Hence the whole, the garment looks beautiful on the outside, but it's ugly and bristled on the inside, you get it. And while talking, Dante notices that there is a man in the middle of the room who is crucified to the floor. And the two friars explain that that is Caiaphas, the guy who had the idea to crucify Jesus. And that whenever they're walking around in the robes, that they have to step on him as his punishment for crucifying Jesus. Again, no clue if anyone's telling them to do that or if that's just like an agreement they all came to or what. And then Dante and Virgil just leave and they head on to the seventh trench. The seventh trench is by far the weirdest one, and like, a lot of the language in this poem, which you can check it out, I linked it in the description itself, is hard to read in its own right. And what he's describing here is... Anyway, so the seventh trench is for thievery. And essentially in it, there are these giant lizard snake things. And they're not lizards or snakes. They're like these weird hybrid creatures that he's just trying to describe that have these stingers on them. and he watches one of them sting a guy that's running around, and he's bound up by snakes. So there's a guy bound by snakes running around in this pit of giant snake lizard things, and one of them stings him, and he falls over and turns to ash. Then all of the ash reforms and he comes back together. And that just keeps happening on a loop. Dante goes down there and asks the guy who he is, and the guy doesn't want to say, and eventually confesses that he stole from a church, because again, this seventh trench is thievery. So then during the conversation, he curses God, and as soon as he does, a series of snakes come and begin to wrap him up. And as they're wrapping him, Dante's talking about how much he hates him and how deserving he is of this punishment. So I want you to imagine Dante standing there at the edge of a trench he just came to. This guy's probably been suffering for, 200-300 years. And Dante is like asking him what happened. And then the guy was like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of God. And immediately snakes wrap all around him. And as he's laying there like suffocating, frothing at the mouth, Dante's like, I cannot believe your insolence. Well, let me tell you, as someone of a higher position, that you are wrong. Good day, sir. This is the really weird part that's hard to describe. So these three souls come up to him, and then they all sort of like scream or cry out for something. And the description that Dante gives, to the best of my ability, is like this worm with legs comes to one of the souls and like burrows inside of it. And then like the soul flips around and becomes this lizard thing. And then, I'm not kidding, read it yourself. And then another one of the souls, this like turtle comes up to, and they both breathe. No, it bites the soul on the chest, and smoke comes out of the chest, and then the smoke becomes a snake. And then the other one like gets eaten by a scorpion thing or whatever and becomes a spider. That's the best I can do. Like, it's this weird long description of these three people flipping in and out, and I'm sure it's this really cool cosmic horror, but the way Dante describes it gets me a little bit. He specifically says, the things that I saw were so great and so amazing that they would put any poet to shame, and that the sights here were more amazing than any man could ever dare to imagine. And like, if this was real, sure, I get it. But Dante here, and he specifically brings up like old Roman and Greek poems and is like, this is cooler than what those guys had. So he's pretty much right into being like, wow, it'd take a pretty cool guy to come up with this stuff, which is definitely real and not made up by a really cool guy. And I think what he's describing is that the souls down here constantly have their bodies stolen by these spirit or like lizard things that are running around everywhere. Or like they're constantly switching bodies. I don't know. Weird stuff is happening in the thief pit. So anyway, they come out of that pit and then they go to the eighth one, which whenever they see it, it's like this long expansive area. And there's these little fires everywhere that Dante describes as looking as fireflies. And then Virgil's like, yeah, underneath every one of those little fires you see is a soul burning all the time. These are the evil leaders and counselors, or in other words, people who led others to death or treachery with their leadership. For example, one person down here is Ulysses from the Trojan Horse story, who says that after all of that happened, he decided to get all of his men together and sail across the seas forever. However, at the time, 1300, they thought that the world ended at a certain point. So his story is that Ulysses went too far and literally went off the map and everyone with him died. So now he's punished down here because he led men to death with his own insolence. One very interesting person down here is Guido da Montefeltro. And again, Guido's a real historical figure, but according to him, Pope Boniface VIII had asked him to be a soldier in his army, and Guido had said that he doesn't want to do that because he's repentant and doesn't want to go to war, but the Pope said that he will give him a pardon in advance if he fights in the Papal War. However, whenever Guido died, a demon took him, saying that you cannot be pardoned for a sin you had not yet committed, because that implies that you regret it. However, if you regret something in advance before you do it, that's not actually regretting it. That's the equivalent of being like, I'm sorry before you punch somebody. And apparently, and again, I'm not an expert on medieval times religion or whatever, but apparently this was a thing that was happening within Catholic churches, people would like get pardons in advance. So again, Dante including him in this tier of hell is another political jab. They come to the 9th trench, which according to Dante is an endless sea that looks like all the carnage from every war in history. It is just arms and legs and bodies and heads and everything else ripped to shreds. Virgil explains that these are the sowers of discord, or in other words, people who have purposefully caused trouble. And that what happens is these demons come around and they pick people up and they just rip them into as many pieces as they want and then throw them back in there. And because this is hell, no one can die. So if your head gets ripped in half and you're just a disembodied head, well, you just gotta lay there forever and then have piles of other body parts thrown on top of you, and you can still feel all your limbs, and it's like that forever. He mentions a few people being down here, most of them people he personally knew from Florence because he does that a lot, as well as the Prophet Muhammad from the religion of Islam, because, I mean, as you could imagine, Dante didn't really care for Islam, so yeah, he put him in there too. Among the carnage, he sees something like a man who's had like his entire mouth and jaw ripped off and can't speak. He saw another man who had his head cut off and was walking around holding his own hair. And whenever he comes to talk to Dante, he's like, hey, talk to he's like, hey, talk to it. There's also this weird line where Dante mentions to Virgil, oh, I should have a family member down here. And Virgil's like, yeah, he was there. You just didn't recognize him because he was skinned alive. And Dante's like, oh, all right, on to the next part. They then get to the 10th trench, which is different. As on their way there, it becomes pitch black, and Dante has to cover his ear from the shriekings that he's hearing. This is the trench of liars and falsifiers. In other words, those who have completely lied outright in order to gain from it. He says that the people in this trench not only experience total darkness, but illnesses of that far beyond earth, or in other words, a constant pestilence. He says he sees people covered in these giant scabs that he compares to fish scales all over their body, that they constantly itch and rip off and bleed everywhere just to continue to scratch before the scabs grow back and they do it over again. He meets a man by the name of Griffolino, who was an alchemist. In other words, he would fake precious metals and then sell them as real, like gold and silver, as well as to rabid people who run around frothing at the mouth, biting other people and themselves, saying that the pestilence here is so strong people have even lost their minds. He comes across a counterfeiter who made fake money, who is hideously bloated and constantly thirsty with no way to get water. And then also down there is Potiphar's wife, who is a Bible character that lied about Joseph in order to have him be thrown in prison. Also, two of them get into a fight, and at this point Dante's so giddy about all this torture stuff that he like enjoys the fight, and then Virgil rebukes him and says, no, don't enjoy their fighting, but it's good that they're suffering, but don't enjoy it too much, and then they leave. So then, walking out of the 8th layer of hell, they walk into this corridor that's incredibly dark. Dante begins to make out in the darkness something that he describes as towers, but as he gets closer, he realizes that these are not towers. Instead, these are giants, I'm controlling myself, who are stuck in the ground from their stomach down, or in other words, it's just the top half sticking out. And all of these giants are in a circle around a huge well. There is one giant by the name of Nimrod who is blowing a trumpet, but whenever he tries to speak to the pair, what he says is completely indiscernible. Virgil explains that Nimrod had the idea to build the Tower of Babel in the Bible, which is the tower that people tried to build in order to get to heaven, and for his insolence, he's been punished that no one can ever understand him. Eventually, they come across a giant named Antaeus, who is not frozen or stuck in any regard, and ask for his help to go down the well. Initially, Antaeus is afraid to go down to the 9th layer, but then Dante says that he can make him famous by writing about him in the story. So Antaeus agrees, and he holds out his hand, to which the two men climb onto it. Gives you a scope for how big this giant is. He then climbs down the well and drops them off onto a frozen lake. They are now in the 9th layer of hell, treason. As the previous 2 layers, it is subdivided this time into 4 parts. The first part is kindred or family betrayal. The second part is country or homeland betrayal. The third part is betrayal of guests and friends. And the fourth part is betrayal to God. As soon as they get there, Dante hears a voice say, be careful where you step, you may step on a sinner. To which Dante pulls back and realizes that he is standing on a giant frozen lake that has heads popping up out of it. And all of the heads are living people who are permanently frozen, unable to move from the neck down. As people cry, the tears freeze across their face, and it's so cold that several people have ears frozen off and are in a permanently pale state of existence. While walking and stepping over all of the heads, he comes across these two men who have their hair knotted together so they're forever touching forehead to forehead. Another soul explains that these are two brothers who killed themselves in the real world, so now they are forced to be stuck together and unable to do anything about it. Virgil then says they need to continue walking, as he says they are walking towards the center of this frozen lake, which is the center of hell itself. Now, something to explain about why the ninth layer is composed this way. The idea being the least offensive treason is that a family, because family is something that you're born into. So while you're still supposed to maintain ties, the love there isn't as strong as the love one would give to a friend or God. The second is country, because country is something that one, or at least Dante figured, someone should be so loyal to that it should surpass that of family. The third being friends and guests, because those are bonds that you have chosen to make and entirely rely on trust, so betraying that is a massive sin against humanity. And then finally, a treacherous act against God. The idea being that since God is perfect, any treacherous act comes from a pure place of malice on your behalf. So as they walk closer to the center, I can't really see in the writing a difference between, you know, the ones who, because like in the 8th tier, there were individual trenches. Like it was easy to see, oh, these people, these people, these people. It seems like here it's just continuing and nothing's changed. The only mention was there was a line about the faces were purple. So maybe it's even colder here, but like, you know, it's still just head sticking out, so whatever. While walking, Dante kicks someone's head on accident, who gets mad, and he's like, why are you torturing me? I'm being tortured enough. Leave me alone. And whenever Dante asks him who he is, the head doesn't respond. So Dante gets down on the ground and grabs his hair and says, if you don't tell me who you are, I'll rip your hair out. Like, that is a wild change from the Dante that we saw like an hour ago. Like this guy went from passing out at the thought of two people kind of floating around in the wind to now he's like, if you don't tell me who you are, I'm going to rip your frozen hairs off one by one. So as this is going on, a head nearby tells Dante that that man is a traitor to Florence. Dante does not like that one bit and tells the frozen man that he's going to write about him in his story, and everyone for all of history will know that he's a traitor to Florence, forever cursed to freeze in hell. He keeps walking and comes across two people who are frozen, one's head up against the back of another, and the one who's pressed up against the back is eating the head of the man in front of him. Dante kneels down and asks what this is all about, and to answer him, the guy that is eating the other guy wipes his mouth on the hair of the guy in front of him and then begins to tell his story. He tells Dante that he himself was a count, and the man whose head he's eating was an archbishop who in life condemned him and his sons into a dungeon where they all starved to death. He gives a grueling account of how he was thrown in there for betraying the city of Pisa, and even though he deserved the treachery, also throwing his sons in there was a treacherous act, and it's heavily, or at least he heavily implies, that he ate his sons as they were about to die. Like that's how hungry he was. So he tells Dante, now the man is forever cursed to be the victim of my hunger, and then he just goes back to eating the guy's head. To which Dante, the takeaway he has from that is he stands up and he's like, Pisa is such a horrible city. I can't believe Pisa is this evil. Could you imagine that? And again, this is the thing that's so weird to me about this. He is in the 9th circle of hell. He has gone where quite literally no man has been before, standing above someone eating someone else's head for eternity. And he's like, man, Pisa really has to get their social climate in order. So then they continue on walking, and they get to the third part of the 9th layer, which is the traitors to guess. Again, because that's entirely bounded on trust, and they broke that trust. These people are different because instead of frozen upright, they're frozen lying on their backs, which means not only do they not have anyone to look at and they never know who's around them, but whenever they cry, instead of the ice kind of pouring down like icicles, it covers their whole face until eventually they're stuck in this frozen mask. It's also at this point that Dante begins to feel a rush of wind, like a gentle breeze happening, and he asks Virgil what it is, and Virgil's like, just, we'll get to it when we get to it. One person who has their face completely frozen in tears asks Dante to help him, and Dante says he will if the man tells him his story. The man frozen on the ground explains that he is Friar Alberigio, which is someone that Dante knows back on Earth. The friar explains that he invited a guest over to his house and murdered him. Dante's confused though because the friar is still alive on Earth, to which the soul explains that if someone commits a sin so heinous that it puts them in the ninth circle of hell, the moment that they commit it, their soul is sucked to hell and their body is filled with a demon. And that's where possessions come from. This is an insanely cool concept to me, like the idea of souls being switched if someone commits an act so heinous against humanity. And guess what Dante's takeaway is from it? That's right, Italian politics. So then, remember, Dante made the deal, tell me who you are, I'll break the ice off your face. And then Dante goes, you know what? No. I'm not going to break the ice on your face. You know why? Because this is what you deserve. And then he stands up and recounts that this man is from Genoa, and he's like, Genoa is such a terrible place that a friar can be possessed and no one could tell the difference. Imagine living in Genoa. Wouldn't that be awful? Like the man just described, there are sins so heinous that a demon possesses your corpse and now they exist in the realm of the living. And his takeaway is that Genoa, not the best place to live. They then continue walking, and Dante says they eventually get to a place where souls are completely frozen beneath the ice. As in not just their head sticking out and they cry, their entire body frozen forever in various positions that he can see beneath the ice as they walk across it. And then finally, they come to the fourth part of the ninth layer of hell, the bottom of the pit itself. As they get close, Virgil explains to Dante the wind that he was feeling earlier that's much stronger now is the wind off of Lucifer's wings as he flaps them. Whenever they get to Lucifer himself, he is massive. As a matter of fact, Dante says that he himself, Dante, is closer in size to the giants than the giants were to the size of Lucifer, implying him to be this monumental mountain-sized figure. Lucifer himself has 3 heads. The one on the right being a dark blackish color, the middle one being deep blood red, and the left one being a bright burning yellow. And from each of those faces pours blood and tears from the eyes that run down his body and create a sort of river. There are 4 people in this bottom pit of hell. The first, as mentioned, is Lucifer. Lucifer for betraying humanity and betraying God. The 2 on either sides of the heads are Brutus and Cassius. Now, that may not mean much to a lot of you, but for my boys who know about Rome, that's a pretty big deal. Brutus and Cassius are the 2 members of the Senate who conspired to murder Caesar. In other words, ending the original Roman Empire, which, as I mentioned earlier, Dante thought pretty highly of. So Caesar himself sat on a throne in the first circle of hell as such a great man, and now the 2 people who conspired to murder him and destroyed the Roman Empire are stuck here as well. The 2 of them hang within the right and left sides of Lucifer's heads, with their top half hanging out as they are constantly chewed, and Lucifer reaches up with claws and scratches them for all eternity. So non-stop within the mouth of Satan, snarling as he bites at you forever. And then finally, in the middle head of Lucifer, the most punished man in all of hell is Judas Iscariot. He is instead facing towards the throat of Lucifer, and Dante says he can see his spine and bones as all the skin has been stripped away. Judas is here for betraying Jesus Christ and leading to the crucifixion of Jesus. So not only for betraying Jesus himself, but for betraying humanity's second attempt at perfection. Virgil explains to Dante that now that they have made it to the bottom of hell and they've seen everything that needs to be seen, it's now time to climb their way out. So Virgil carries Dante on his back and waits for an opportune moment to grab onto the side of Lucifer and begin climbing up him. Virgil's climbing for a while before jumping off of Lucifer onto a rock face, And then Dante opens his eyes, and instead of seeing, you know, Lucifer's chest as if he was climbing up, he sees Lucifer's legs sticking up as if everything's been flipped upside down. Virgil explains that this entire time they've been traveling towards the center of the earth, and now they've passed the barrier where gravity has flipped, and they are now climbing their way out. Virgil says that they are climbing their way to the southern hemisphere, which is almost entirely made of water. According to him, whenever Lucifer was cast out of heaven, all of the land moved away from him, and he shot a straight hole all the way from the heavens to the center of the earth, where he got stuck going through, and that's the reason he's now frozen, setting up, chewing on Brutus, Cassius, and Judas. So all that they have to do is tunnel their way out the hole that Lucifer originally made whenever he got shot in. The waters from the oceans, because again, as Virgil said, the land moved away from him, so now it's pretty much just water up there. The waters from these oceans burrow their way down, and Dante says that this water coming through is the river Lethe from Greek mythology. And then they finally pop out, as Dante says, at the exact opposite point on Earth from where they started. So they made a direct line through the entire earth, with the final line of Dante's Inferno being, "Thence we came forth to re-behold the stars," meaning they're finally out on the surface and can once again see the stars. Not only that, but they've popped out at the foot of Mount Purgatory, or in this legend, the mountain on which Purgatory exists, which makes sense at this
sausage back. Oi. Big man, do you reckon we get a change on some of these sauce pots? Just as you're going down. Just as you're going down. Behind you. One sausage, cable. How's 23 looking? Let's go 23 first.
House sausage?
Yep.
Table?
23, please. Service, please. Corn croquettes, 22. How are you looking on a bread on 48 there, big dog? Just remember to glaze it up with the oil there, please, mate.
Sorry?
Glaze the rabbit terrine up with the oil.
Callum.
Classic Cal. Oh, one cod's head for the mains. Yeah, you can bring it up now, mate. Guys, can I get a fresh apple ketchup out, please? Yes, please. Charcuterie, take that over to the pastry section, please. Just go in with the bread. Right, mushroom parfait, beetroot salad working, yeah? Is that sausage rested now, Tyler? Behind you. Watch your back. We're done with the burrata now. Can we get rid of the setup for the burrata? You can store that in your fridge for tomorrow. Hopefully we get some more in tomorrow morning. And I'm done with that kohlrabi, so I'll put everything in here. I think they're just.
This week, I tried to get on second.
Yeah, I think they're low the whole week. Backs, please. Service, please. One mushroom parfait. 24. Nice work, bro. Just hold that for 1 second back there, please. bring it back up in about a minute and a half. Whoa, look at that salad. What a treat. Spoiling him today, Wilford. Beautiful. That's why they call you salad fingers, mate. 24, please.
You want to curry the sausage?
Yeah, you can carve and plate that one, mate. So yeah. Fire one parfait, one mackerel, please. Got pork sauce there for me. Oh really? Just what we need. Is it any good? Have we tried it?
Yeah, it's okay. It's quite like a sweet kind of powdery texture to it.
Delicious. Right, one sausage, table 2, please. Tyler, make sure your section's nice and clean back there, please, mate. Service one cabbage, table 23, please. 207, Tyler. Whoa. Nice, eh? Is that the cured stuff? It's not too firm, is it? Or is... No? No? Quick on those spoon pots, please, and the ones at the back. Service, please, one parfait, table 10. Beautiful, that, mate. One thing I will say, it'll look even better if you cut the mackerel on a bias.
Yeah.
So more, do you know what I mean? More angle.
Yeah.
Because you kind of cut it straight there, and like just not straight, but like not very severe of an angle.
Yeah. Okay.
Mackerel, table 10. To return. I'm waiting on sriracha butter sauce. Tell you what, a lot of quick tables coming through tonight. Everyone's out by 7:30. I feel like we're running 5 guys there.
You ready on that?
Ready on that clock, Dad. Yeah, way on the sriracha butter, mate. Desperate for it. Table 6, yeah.
I think the muggy fish is table 2.
Table 3. Table 3.
No, it's table 2. Right, table 3.
Have you sent it, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, mate. Yeah. Fire 2 cabbage for the main side, please. Service, please. Mr. Ali, that is going, that concept goes to table 6, please.
Fries in the greens behind you. Buy me a salad, can I?
9 away.
Use this opportunity just to get topped up. Tyler, can I get some more greens on the pass, fried greens on the pass, please? All on the hotline today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Guys, do a little top of everything, please. Burger plates, sauce jugs, everything we can do. Have a nice little clean on the back end of your pass. How we doing, mate? Good shot. El Salido, do you want to get a bigger bowl there? Or?
Catch me up.
Oh, there it is. Cost one of them.
I'll do it all that. Beef or squid.
Please. By the way, we should definitely make that a permanent setup. Saves so much time on the pass.
I'd say let's get the feta and the crabs. I'm just going to go on the crabs. Because by the time they get that,
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
I'll put that in my head.
Yeah, chef, thank you, mate. Right, guys, nice and quick. 2 croquettes, table 11. Nope, just the 2. That's 2 portions, that's 1, please. Just, no.
This one, table.
2 croquettes, that one.
Table is
Yep.
okay.
48, 1 croquettes, please, Ali. Alright, Valley, all good? Good to remember the fork. It's banging, isn't it? So soft. Looking forward to a Chelsea tart. Please. Yes, thank you. Cross it out, please, Ali.
That's all right.
The steak and corn. Yes.
Sorry, guys.
Miso back. Combo on that cabbage, please. Get a combo shaker, please. Don't have the date, Joy. Chris, when do we get busy again? Chris, when does it kick off again? 7:30?
Oh, that's nice. Joe, what's his face? Holland seems to be running late.
Joe Holland's running late, okay?
Yeah, so that's a table at 8 that was at 6:30. 7:30's quite busy. Then 8 o'clock there's a table 10 coming in, which is Lisa Smith. You know Lisa?
Yeah, of course.
Then there's a 20 covers coming in at 8:30. And then after that, 4 tables to 2.
What's the last?
Last 9 o'clock.
Oh, wow, okay. 106, please, on a parfum.
We have 105. 100 also still to 6.
Oh, okay, so it's been fairly tame. That's good. It's going to kick off, is that what you're saying? Straight fire on 27. Chef.
That's James.
Service, please.
I'll do it. That's you. Yeah,
106, please.
106.
So, Hallihead cabbage coming up right now. Yeah. Hey Marcus, how's the bar going?
Alright, pretty good. Chef, 106 is 104 now.
106 has changed to 104, yeah.
Thank you very much, Chef.
coming down. Got a position number on this cabbage, mate. Sriracha coming down, please. That's right. That's a cow. That's a big old boy, isn't it? Yeah, Yes, Wilford. He's everywhere tonight. Guys, we've got about 100 covers left.